Everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Jake. So my wife and I have been here since Saturday. This is our first time over to Amsterdam, and so we've just been traveling around and really enjoying ourselves, riding around on bikes, seeing all the canals, all the shops, all the stores. It's been fantastic. And as we've been going around the city, we started seeing these 3 X's popping up everywhere. And, they're on flags, they're on storefronts, coats of arms, and even on lampposts and stuff. So finally, curiosity got the best of me, and so I decided to Google it. I had no idea you guys were such big Vin Diesel fans. So forgive me if I'm incoherent at any point in time up here, but my brain is pretty much overloaded right now. I don't know about you guys, but absolutely amazing talk so far, so thank you, PPK. Let's give everybody a round of applause. These are absolutely amazing. And Jake, what a debag. So, this isn't the web. Once upon a time it was, hence this amazingly crusty-looking desktop computer. But this is what we've been used to for the past 15 or so years. All of a sudden, though, the web isn't this simple anymore. It's a lot bigger. We have feature phones, smartphones, dumb phones, e-readers, tablets, netbooks, notebooks, desktops, web-enabled TVs, game consoles, and a whole lot more. So all of a sudden, the concept of the web becomes a lot bigger and a little more daunting, right? But if you think about it, this is just the beginning, because in addition to all the devices we have to deal with today, there's a whole lot of connected stuff right around the corner. We are already seeing TVs and refrigerators and stuff come to market, a lot of the stuff that Scott was talking about. But perhaps what's more important than the things that are already in our periphery are these question marks. Nobody knows, not even the best informed people in the world, know what the landscape is going to look like 2 or even 3 years from now. I mean, you turn your head and bam, Google comes out with some crazy shit. Google Glasses, right? And it's just like, how do you deal with that? How do you even predict that stuff, So it would be foolish to say that we could create anything today that's truly future-proof, right? But just because we can't predict the future doesn't mean that there aren't things we could do as web creators today to better prepare us for this future that's guaranteed to be filled with innovation, with change, with this perpetual diversity. So why the web? Well, the real power of the web is its ubiquity. No native platform or proprietary solution can claim the web's level of reach, right? And that's becoming increasingly important because as all these devices come out, we need to meet them whenever they arrive. So the web's ubiquity and intrinsic inclusiveness is something that we need to preserve and embrace. Because it really does. It has the potential to serve as the glue that holds this whole connected world together. But here we are, and we're stuck in the present. Too many people still believe that the web is this 960-pixel wide box that sits on your lap or on your desk. So we need to evolve our thinking. We need to evolve our thinking about what the web is and what it can do and how it could help us moving forward. So I think what we need to primarily rethink is the content we create for the web, what we actually do, what we put out into the world, and the context in which people are interacting with our products and services. So the first role of this is to actually make shit that's worthwhile. Make shit that's actually useful, that serves a purpose, that's sincere, that's real. Because you might think that that's a no-duh sort of statement, but I spend a lot of time around a lot of vocabulary that just makes me cringe. Ooh. Let's use gamification to leverage millennial influencers to socialize these drivers. I don't know about you, but I live in that world, and it's a scary place, and it just begs the question, is this useful? Is this genuinely valuable? And I say this because people's capacity for bullshit is rapidly diminishing, very, very quickly. We're getting fire hosed with over 34 gigs of information a day. I actually recently read an article that said that 10% of all photos ever taken in the existence of photography were taken in the last year. And that really stuck out to me. You know, there's more photos, there's more videos, there's more sites, there's more apps, there's more games. There's all this stuff, and it's demanding our attention and begging to be interacted with. And we as human beings only could handle so much. So out of necessity, we're finding ways to just strip away all the bullshit in our lives and streamline and focus. So let's take a look at a typical web page. It's maybe not the most typical page in the world, but it's not all that uncommon either. If you look at this highlighted section, this is the only reason why anyone would ever want to visit this site. Yet it's given such a small percentage of the screen real estate. So in case that isn't explicit enough, so we have to focus, right? We need to reprioritize and simplify. Focus on what really matters to our users, and focus on what really matters to us as businesses, as creators. Because, you know, we need to move away from being these digital sort of hoarders, where we're in the digital realm, so we can't see all the newspapers piling up around us, you know? Things just get swept away in the digital abyss. So we need to make sure that we have everything accounted for, and that everything that we're including on our pages is really valuable to our end users. Because if we don't do this, our users will do it for us, right? If you don't like your reading experience, you could use a tool like Readability or Instapaper, Safari Reader to make it much, much better. If you don't like sitting through a bunch of flash overlay ads in your face all the time, you could use a tool like AdBlock Plus to make those go away. If you don't want to sit through commercials, use your DVR or TiVo to flip forward. And if you don't like, you know, or if you can't find the content you're looking for, you could go to something like Pirate Bay or BitTorrent to find it. So it's really becoming increasingly essential to just really create meaningful things for real people, or else we will be ignored, because that's the worst case scenario. People will try their damnedest to get around all the bullshit we put in their way, but ultimately you will be ignored, you will be forgotten. So in addition to creating relevant content, worthwhile content, we need to think of our content that's like water. And Josh Clark was the one that came up with this, sort of channeling Bruce Lee. He said, we need to think of our content like water that's able to be poured into this multitude of containers. That's a really lovely thought, right? So get your content ready to go anywhere, because it's going to go everywhere. If you think about it, the things that you're creating today and the things that you've created in the last couple years are being interacted with on devices that didn't exist whenever you created them. So it's not just about creating things that are inclusive for today's landscape, but also tomorrow's landscape, because we need to be thinking about building things that have lasting value. So instead of this, which I'm sure if we were to combine all of the instances that we've ever heard of this together, it'd probably be like 400 million times. Everyone and their grandma has an idea for an app, right? But this is what we need to overcome. It's not about apps, it's not about websites. It's about creating things wherever people might be. There's actually a commenter somewhere in the after the panel that's saying, you know, it really doesn't matter to me. You know, people, it's true, to an end user, they just want to get done what they came there to do. So that means apps, that means websites, that means a whole host of other things. That means innovating in ways that Scott was talking about earlier. So we need to sort of take a step back and focus on solving the real problem first, or creating the real opportunity first. I want to make it easy for people to watch movies. I want to make it easy for people to download and read and buy ebooks. And in doing that, we're sort of nailing the idea rather than the individual channel. And as a result, those ideas will be able to live on after the landscape's evolved. So it is. It's just about focusing on the core concept rather on any one individual channel. And so what we're talking about is reaching people in more contexts. So for a while, this is pretty much what we've been used to as far as context is concerned. Of course our users are comfortable and stationary and focused, caffeinated, ready to rock on efficient inputs like mouse and keyboard. Of course they have a capable browser on a big screen and a fast connection with a powerful CPU. But this was never true, obviously, but these are these comfortable assumptions we made for ourselves to make our lives easier. And as we all know, over the last couple years, context has gotten a lot fuzzier, right? We use our devices anywhere and everywhere. So I think that we need to take into account what context is, what it means, think harder about each individual channel, but just across the board. So we have the quantitative aspects of it, things like screen size, or does it have a screen at all? And connectivity, are they on Wi-Fi, or are they on Fios? Things like input methods, are they on a BlackBerry Pearl? Is it a touch screen? Is it a mouse and keyboard? Or is it a gesture like Jason was talking about with the browsers, or with the clunky-ass old TV remotes or whatever? But then we also have the qualitative aspects, right? Does a user visiting your product or service on their mobile phone, do their goals differ than if they were visiting it from a laptop? Maybe, maybe not. What's their environment's role in all of this? Are they outside? Are they in broad daylight? Can they read? Are they on the go? Are they on the couch? Who knows? Do we have their full attention? Are they even capable of completing the tasks we want them to complete? So I think that all of these considerations are sort of rolled into one. This is the overarching sort of theme of this, is to really focus on what really matters and make that available to anyone wherever they might be. So in order to do that, we need to act differently. Hope there's a Monty Python lover in the fan. Stephanie Rieger, she pointed out quite beautifully that we need to make smarter content, not smarter containers. I think that we as web designers, as web developers, we get focused on the new and the shiny, all the toys to play with, but we run the risk, and this happens all the time, and I see it all the time, where we essentially just slap a new coat of paint on an otherwise condemned building. And that's what we need to avoid. Our content is our foundation in which everything else stands. So we really need to invest in our content infrastructure in the terms of creating more robust CMSs that's able to pipe content wherever it needs to go, and create clean APIs that's able to reach places that wouldn't otherwise be able to be reached. And then as far as the actual construction is concerned, we need to start thinking more responsively. Now, I want to talk about this because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions. Because if you think that responsive web design is about fluid grids, flexible media, and media queries, you're missing the point entirely. The goal of this isn't to create squishy websites. The goal of this isn't so you can resize a browser to impress your boss or your client or your friends. The goal of this was really to create a more optimal experience across more contexts, and that's becoming increasingly diverse. So it starts to make sense whenever we think of responsive design as a piece of the puzzle of this much larger adaptive puzzle here. It's part of the equation. Yes, layout's important. Yes, we need to think more flexibly, but that's not all there is to it. So we need to take it beyond just simply layout and apply it to all things. And there's no such thing as a certified organic grade A responsive experience, so it's no use getting religious over it. And unfortunately, that's lost on people. People do get religious about this. Both people that are proponents of it and opponents of it, I think that they're missing the point of what this is and what it's trying to do. And again, Stephanie Rieger said it beautifully, that responsiveness is a characteristic. That even if you're creating a separate mobile site or a desktop-only site, that sort of flexibility, should come into play regardless. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, your users don't give a shit if your site is responsive. Your users don't give a shit if it's a separate mobile site or a tablet site. Your users don't give a shit even if it's a plain Jane desktop-only site. There are ways of getting around that stuff, and our users are good at that. They've sort of learned this. But they do give a shit whenever they can't get done what they came here to do. So this gallery does not currently support mobile devices. The story you are trying to access cannot be found on our mobile site. We're sorry, this promotion is only supported on Windows phones. So we need to avoid that, right? Content parity is increasingly essential. Your users do give a shit whenever your site takes 25 seconds to download. This is Barack Obama's site, just a typical page off of it, that weighs over 4.2 megs. That's like acceptable if you're downloading the Obama fight song MP3 or something, but I wouldn't say just a regular website. And somewhere in the audience, Steve Souders a single tear rolls down his cheek. But that creates real accessibility problems. I actually asked my cousin, who's a BlackBerry user, who uses the web on it quite often, actually. I said, hey, let me see what that looks like on your BlackBerry. And this is what he returned to me. Right? And your users do give a shit whenever interactions are awkward and broken. This page has to ideally be opened on your laptop or desktop browser. Once you open this link on your computer, then you will have a QR code to the URL that needs to be opened on your device. I want to uppercut whoever wrote that in the face. But yeah, so this is what we're talking about. It's about the end user experience, and there's lots of different ways to arrive at it. But responsive web design isn't a panacea to our problems. It never claimed to be, actually. But it's this great step in the right direction. And what really excites me about responsive web design is that it's getting us talking about designing beyond a singular context or beyond a singular screen size. And this opens up a whole lot of conversations that are much needed and, in my opinion, long overdue. So embrace the squishiness. As I like to say, I trademarked that just in case. But I wouldn't recommend going to embracethesquishiness.com. I'm not sure what you'll find. But like James was saying yesterday, these different devices are so much more than just a different screen size. It's not just a 320-pixel screen behind a piece of glass. So we can't just slap on some media queries and say, all right, mobile optimized, I'm going to lunch. So that's where Luke's mobile-first philosophy and strategy sort of comes in to sort of help us out here. So by addressing the constraints of the mobile medium and also thinking about the capabilities it provides and working up and building up from there, we're able to create a much more robust foundation for which to stand. Instead of thinking desktop first and cramming everything down, running the risk of overflowing, or losing content or whatever, and crossing our fingers every time a device comes out, hoping that our site or service will render on it. So really what we're talking about is progressive enhancement, just applied on a much larger scope, because we need a solid foundation to stand on. So from a front-end standpoint, we're talking about structured content, semantic lean markup. This guy, I don't know if you've heard of him, Stephen Hay. He goes around at night flexing boxes and stuff. It's kind of creepy, actually. But yeah, Stephen Hay brilliantly said that properly structured content is portable to future platforms, which is a nice way of saying that at the end of the day, we kind of count on HTML rendering in a browser. And then whenever we get into CSS, it's about sort of really embracing the cascade and not introducing things that are unneeded, right? Writing mobile-first styles. So instead of having to declare a bunch of desktop roles only to have to undo them just for mobile browsers, simply introduce those desktop styles whenever they're needed. So it sort of turns everything on its head and makes it more clean, smaller, more maintainable. It's great. And then as far as JavaScript goes, we have feature detection. We want to use tools like Modernizer and continue to improve those tools, optimizing performance, and being aware of false positives. So as Jake just handily demonstrated, things aren't always as easy as a yes and no, I support application cache or not. But in the meantime, these separate sites aren't scalable in the long run. Unless you're Google, your Twitter, or Facebook, and have dozens of developers lying around that you could throw at each individual channel, it's going to become increasingly hard to create and maintain for all of these different devices. But this could be your reality. I don't know about you, but I can't go back to work on Monday and just bulldoze all the existing infrastructure, our current desktop site, and do this whole mobile-first adaptive approach, right? So we need to sort of take advantage of these opportunities. And while these M.dot sites, a lot of people disagree with them fundamentally, and I'm sort of in that boat, at the same time, they're serving an important purpose right now. So we could use this as an opportunity. We have these mobile sites coming along, mobile's exploding, we need to address it. It's a little line item at the end of our budgets. And so we use it, we cultivate it, we eventually grow it into a fully robust system, and then we're ultimately able to grow out of our old dusty desktop site. And that's exactly what the BBC is doing right now. So their m.bbc news site is this nice mobile-first responsive thing, but they still have their desktop layer. And in the meantime, they've learned a lot about mobile design, testing, performance, and thankfully they've shared a lot of that with everybody. So the point is to start today. Boston Globe-esque redesigns don't present themselves to you all the time. Very often you need to take steps towards it. We need to embrace the unpredictability of the future. This is a massive shift, and it's only going to get harder and more diverse. And nobody's saying that it's easy, right? Anybody that says this stuff is easy is lying to your face. But it's absolutely necessary, because there is a real risk of becoming stagnant. This Benjamin Franklin quote really sums it up nicely. When you're finished changing, you're finished. And we're entering this era of perpetual diversity and constant change, and we need to evolve right there along with it. Now, that doesn't mean throwing all that we've learned in the garbage and running off into the wild, but it does mean addressing it, being open to change. And that means that it's going to take all of us. I think that there's a lot of room at this party for a lot of different solutions, strategies, implementations, and clever bits. So I like to say that this isn't religion, this is web design. So be open from learning from other people, even people you disagree with, because they might have something there that you might be able to roll into your own strategy or whatever. But we could all learn from each other, and I think that that's extremely, extremely important. So I like to call myself an extreme pragmatist, where I have my ideals, sure, we all do, but whenever push comes to shove, we got to do whatever we need to do to get the job done and to move closer. But I think the goal is to keep our eye on creating relevant, purposeful content, functionality, services, and products that people will actually use, and make those available in as many places as possible. And let's face it, that this is going to be really, really fun. We have a tendency to think of these things as our jobs, but we actually have the opportunity here to really redefine what the web is, what it can do, and it's going to be a blast to figure this out. So I will leave you with this. Go forth and create future-friendly experiences. Thanks a lot, guys.